All right, peace and blessings, all praises to the Most High. And I want you guys to take a look at this picture real quick. This picture right here is from June the 15th, 1920. And there you see a group of Caucasian people standing around three, or really two, black people suspended in the air from a light pole, and one of the others is at the foot of the other two, for a total of three people who were lynched in Duluth, Minnesota. And if you look at the smiles and the gestures on this crowd's face, everybody is stretching their necks to get in the picture. You could feel the vileness of these individuals, the heartlessness, as they pose for this postcard. This was actually a postcard that was sent around the country to neighbors and friends. Now, mind you, this happened in 1920, 105 years ago, in the city of Duluth, Minnesota. Now, we think that 105 years is a long time, but in the totality of time, it really is not. Let me take this picture down. Hopefully, YouTube will allow this video to remain up and not get flagged. Now, the reason I'm sharing this is because this is so similar. What happened to these young black men is similar to what we see happening today, in the form of police being complicit and actual participants in these modern day lynchings, as they are called. Now, what happened? This happened in Duluth, Minnesota. Now, during that time, Duluth, Minnesota had a population of about 1,000 people. And of those 1,000 people, many of them were immigrants, Irish, Swedes, Middle Eastern, Irish, Swedes, Middle Eastern, and the like. Now, of that 100,000 population, only 495 people were black. And I think that's like a 0.05 or even a 0.005%. Y'all do the math. Y'all let me know in the comments, were black people. And so on June the 14th, 1920, the John Robinson Circus came to town. And when the John Robinson Circus came to town, he brought a lot of field hands and, tent breaker downs, roustabouts, and all of those things that they give them. Basically, there was a lot of black people who were working for the circus. And that night that they had the one night show on the 14th, while the black workers and the tent workers were taking down the tent, there was a young Caucasian couple, Irene Tucker and James Sullivan, who were standing in the darkness watching the big black burly guys work. Now, once again, imagine they were fascinated with them because, again, they hardly ever saw black people. And so they were probably fascinated with them. And we don't know what really happened during that time between these alleged 6 workers and Irene Tucker and James Sullivan. But that night, James Sullivan went home and told his father that he and Irene were attacked by 5 or 6 circus workers, and that the 5 or 6 circus workers R-worded aped Irene. And of course, during that time in history, when that claim was made by an all-American, pure, chaste, honest white woman, then there usually was hell to pay. There was blind fury. So what happened the next morning? James Sullivan's father called the police, John Murphy, and told him he added some yeast to the lies, they say. He told the police that his son and Irene were held at gunpoint, robbed, and then Irene was all worded aped by these workers. So what did the chief do? The chief went out there to the circus and lined up all 150 roustabouts, as they called. And they arrested 6 of them. 3 of them being Elias Clayton, Elmer Jackson, and Isaac McGee. And they took those 3 to the jailhouse. Now, all over the news later that day, they printed the story. And of course, the story grew and grew. One story even said that, the young Irene was on her deathbed from her injuries. And so the story goes 1,000 to 10,000. Now that's a great disparity, right? 1,000 to 10,000 men. Basically, the whole city came out in front of the jail, demanding that these guys be brought forward. And this is what I say when I see what happens today, how it is so similar, that the police commissioner told the police not to use their guns to keep the angry mob back, essentially allowing the angry mob to break through the prison using bricks, timber, and rails, and take all 6 of the prisoners out. And when they got 3 of them, and those are our dear brothers, Elias Clayton, Elmer Jackson, and Isaac McGee, they convicted them in what is called a kangaroo court, whatever that is. But, I guess it's some sham of a court. They took them less than a block away, really quick, found the light bulb, and there you see, once again, hopefully YouTube allows me to show this picture, the guys strung up on a light pole, back to back, hands tied behind their back. And one fella, I guess he, had just failed, or they didn't tie, whatever it is, tight enough for him to remain suspended. And as you know, just like today, no one was ever convicted of that heinous crime. They said that the police had a hard time identifying members of the mob. How can you have a hard time identifying them when they literally have a picture floating around on postcards? Right? This is what I see when the police say, well, you can see from the film, he didn't have a weapon, but it looked like he had a weapon, so the officer was justified. That's basically what we see. That the officers are lying in our faces. Well, we couldn't figure out who it was, but everybody in the town, and you stood there and watched these guys take those prisoners out of the jail. Nevertheless, they did ended up indicting about 27 of the men for rioting, and then indicted 12 of them for the actual unalivement. But of course, only 3 of them would be convicted, and those 3 would only be convicted of rioting. that is, once again, what we see today. When these police officers take lives, they don't get convicted of taking a life. They will get convicted of a lesser charge, i.e. Breonna Taylor. They didn't get convicted of taking her life. They got convicted of wanton endangerment, which the bullets, the hail of bullets that they were shooting at her just so haphazardly entered the next apartment into some white people where they were staying. And they were charged with wanton endangerment. And so that's what this is right here. And that's why I call these situations modern day lynchings. They are different in methods, but they're not different in tactics. Police are complicit in covering these things up and allowing these things to happen under the rule of law, under the rule of procedure, under the rule of guideline, under the rule of interpretation. Just like all of these things happen all around the country, and no one was ever convicted, although people were standing around taking souvenirs, burning the people, taking pieces of their flesh, but no one could be identified. And so I just wanted to share this once again. This came from another story that I was doing about Duluth. I think that's where one of the stories that I've covered, and somebody told me about this incident. So I had to look it up, and actually they just celebrated. And this is another thing they play in our face. They celebrated the commemoration of this event. Like, this is something to celebrate. And so almost once again, it's like digging a knife further in your back. Like, yeah, we did it. Nobody, but we're going to celebrate because this is a major event that happened. Man, after that, they said they changed the lynching laws in Minnesota. And part of the reason why this happened, they said that a lot of blacks were migrating to the north that time, and a lot of whites and immigrants feared, for their job security. And so that's what made it easy. A lot of those people in that picture was, you can tell, you can see some immigration features on their person. But nevertheless, I just had to share this to show the similarities between how police react then to these past lynchings to how police and law officials and judicial officials, prosecutors react nowadays to these modern day lynchings. But y'all let me know what y'all think about that comparison in the comments. Is it a true comparison? Y'all let me know. And as always, thanks for watching. And the number 919-587-7782. Ephesians 5:11. Take no part in the works of darkness, rather expose them, because it is a shame to even speak of what they do in secret. Peace and blessings.